My name is Steve Brar, and I'm Senior Director of Portfolio Marketing here at Aruba. And today, on this session, we wanted to talk about our unified infrastructure offerings, specifically how we're working to break down some of the traditional silos in technology around your network infrastructure. And we've assembled a great panel of some of the leaders within our product groups, as well as innovators in the organization to help walk you guys through what we're doing. We'll have Jyoti Srikumar, who was earlier on the AI Ops, walk us through some of the amazing capabilities we're bringing to market as part of our unified infrastructure offering. We also have Scott Calzia, who's our Vice President of Product Management for our wireless product lines, and William Cho, who's Vice President of Product Management for our switching product lines, as well as Justin Noonan from our technical marketing organization, who will do some demonstrations, as well as Samuel Perez, who will talk to you guys about our SD-WAN infrastructure offerings. So, great leaders here assembled to talk to you guys and go deep on the technology. So with that, I want to just kick it off with, tying it back to what we announced this week around the Aruba Edge Services platform. And unified infrastructure, having a unified infrastructure is really a key foundational pillar to how we're able to enable all the capabilities that we're going to be delivering with ESP. Just this week, we've announced a number of new innovations. You guys earlier saw the AI Insights capability. We have new capabilities across the portfolio that we'll share a little bit more about in this session. But really, the core of our unified infrastructure offering is Aruba Central. And Aruba Central really is unifying all the network operations across switching, Wi-Fi, SD-WAN, and across locations, from remote worker use cases, which are very obviously important today, the branch offices, edge locations where business is done, traditional campus type locations, and as we look to the future, we'll also be integrating our data center offerings into that. Aruba Central, this week we announced that we're going to be delivering that on a cloud or on-prem basis, really helping to streamline the operations across the network silos and providing a unified policy across the network as well. And so when you dig a little deeper and break it out, some of the key innovations this week we announced is taking Aruba Central and making it scalable to really any size environment, all the way even up to large campuses. Introductions in our product families, from switching with the new CX6200, new advancements in wireless with AOS 10. And so to talk a little bit more about some of these capabilities and what we're delivering, I want to introduce Scott Calzia, Vice President of our wireless business unit, product management. Scott?
Thank you, Steve. Good morning, good afternoon. Thank you for joining, everybody. So, very quickly, this week we announced the Edge Services platform at our Virtual Atmosphere event, as Steve mentioned. You see on this slide, this essentially is the Edge Services platform. It's comprised of various layers, 3 layers. The first is the infrastructure. And with the Edge Services platform, we're actually extending the infrastructure across wireless, wired, and everything between, including the wide area network. So we're able to manage environments all the way from large campuses down to branch office and even teleworker types of environments. And that even extends back into the data center in a lot of those spaces. We're managing our wireless portfolio, our wired portfolio, our SD-WAN or our WAN portfolio. We're extending that to manage clientless devices or IoT devices, VPN platforms as well, and you'll see a number of demos on that today. Overlaying that infrastructure is a consistent umbrella of a policy enforcement, and we enforce policy at various layers within that infrastructure. Could be at the wireless layer, could be at wired, et cetera. We're also providing the long-standing role-based policy that we have that's been built as part of Aruba's infrastructure and ecosystem for a long period of time. Really, the heart of the Edge Services platform is Aruba Central. And Central, you probably think of as a management platform, and that still is true. We're still doing provisioning, monitoring, reporting, and troubleshooting with Central, but we're also integrating a lot of other capabilities from a variety of platforms that Aruba's delivered over the years, including network analytics with our Net Insight platform, location services with our Meridian platform, user experience insights, or the ability to overlay synthetic transactions and integrate those into the overall management and visibility capabilities within Central. So to demonstrate that, to show the ability to manage an entire unified infrastructure across a variety of locations, I'm going to turn things over to Jyoti Sri Kumar, who's going to give us a brief demonstration on the unified infrastructure management.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you for the introduction. And today with this demo, I'll give you an overview of Aruba Central. We'll see three key aspects of Central. We'll look at how Central unifies the management of your network infrastructure, including your wired, wireless, and WAN infrastructure devices across various different kinds of deployments, including small to large campus deployments, SD branch, and micro branch also. We'll also look at some of the simplified workflows that help you deploy these deployments, deploy these sites. And then finally, we'll also look at once the sites are deployed, most of your activity, your day two activity starts with being able to maintain and troubleshoot client connectivity issues and monitoring your network. So we'll look at some of those monitoring workflows as well. So let's get started. Once you log into Aruba Central, you see the network health dashboard, and this gives you a bird's eye view of all the sites that are deployed across your network. Let's look at a few sites, a demo site here. So the first one that we are going to look at is an SD branch deployment that has the Aruba access points, switches, as well as gateways. If you click on the topology view, you can see how the devices are interconnected. You can see the access points, the SD branch switch, as well as the branch gateway that is deployed at this specific site. Once you click on the SD branch gateway, you'll get more details about this particular device. You can see what are the WAN uplinks that are available at this site, the tunnels that the SD branch gateway is using to connect to the VPN gateways for secure traffic from the branch gateway to the VPNC gateway, and how SD branch gateway is providing you the ability to load balance across multiple WAN uplinks, as well as more WAN optimization features like path steering, as well as policy-based routing. So Samuel will later go on to more details about the SD branch deployment, but that was one way of setting your network for a distributed networks. So the other deployment is what we recently introduced, is for with the ability to manage large campus network using our recently introduced solution for AOS 10. So with AOS 10, now we can manage larger campus deployment. And to start with, I want to show you how we are using that ability to manage the Aruba headquarters site. So if you look at this particular deployment network and drill down directly to the Aruba headquarters site, you will see that we have quite a few devices that have been that are being managed within our campus deployment. We have few APs and gateways here. Now you're seeing gateways in the campus deployment for the first night. You probably are more aware of controllers being deployed at a campus at a large campus network. So what we have done with AOS 10, AOS 8 is taken out some of the network services and the control plane out of the controller and moved it to the mobility master. But now with the introduction of AOS 10, we are taking more of those services and control plane away from the controllers and putting it into Aruba Central. So a lot of services like AirMatch, Air Group, UCC, all of these are now part of Aruba Central. And the controller now becomes a campus gateway, which is used mostly for aggregating traffic as from the access points, and then also provides additional mobility functions like centralized VLANs and L3 roaming, as well as security functions like dynamic segmentation, where you can now unify all the all the policy enforcement at the gateway from the wired and wireless users. So let's look at some of the clients. So since this is our headquarters network, you won't see very many clients connected at this point because as you know, because of the times that we are in, many of the people are actually not in the office and they are working from their homes. So what you see here as the clients connected to this network are mostly CAPE sensors and some IT and TME folks who have their devices connected here. So let's look at one of the clients in a little bit more detail. And from this view, you can see the entire data path of the client, the SSID that the client is trying to connect to, the access point that it is connected to, and finally, the gateway that terminates this access point. And as we discussed earlier, this is a gateway device, which is an AOS 10 device that's now being used to terminate access points. We talked about some of the services that are now moved from the controllers back into the central. So let's look at that in a little bit more details. If you look at the access points under radios, you can see that we have now AirMatch service that is running as part of central. You can see that AirMatch has set the channel distribution for both the radios. It's nicely evenly distributed. You can see all the channel changes and power changes that are happening in the setup from the central dashboard itself. Similarly, we can also take a look at another site that is being used for a remote deployment. So this is one of our TMEs who has his home-based setup that is connecting remote access points to the Aruba, the AOS 10 gateways that are running our corporate network. And you can see this one of his access points, and he has a few clients that are connected that receive IP address from the corporate network. So with this, what we are trying to do is now with the introduction of AOS 10, we have the ability to manage small to large deployments, campus deployments, along with the SD-WAN solutions that we have had for quite some time now. Now, this sounds like pretty complicated if you want to deploy such a network, but with Central's simplified workflows, we have made it really easy for you to deploy this kind of solution. So let's take a look at how the config workflows for access points. So if you look at the access point group, click on config. You see the WLAN configuration page, and what we have here is the basic and advanced phase of deploying networks for users who want simple click-through deployment. We have these config wizards, and if you are a power user who wants to configure multiple knobs and for your network, then you have that option too. Creating an SSID is as simple as again a few clicks. You can have an SSID up and running. So you name the SSID, create a VLAN, and assign the client VLAN. Set your security levels, set your role-based access, and that's it. You have the SSID configured. If we go back to the VLANs tab, you will notice that we have a new method of forwarding traffic that is supported with the AOS 10, and that's a tunnel mode of forwarding traffic. And you can pick the gateway device that this particular access point is going to tunnel that traffic to. Now that we are talking about gateways, let's also quickly look at the gateway configuration. Sorry, wrong group. Let me click on the gateway group here. And now if you look at the devices, you can see under gateways, I have two gateways that are part of this network, and they have been deployed as a gateway cluster. those of you who are aware of gateways clustering capabilities in AOS 8, now you have the same ability using AOS 10 being managed by Central. So this gateway cluster consists of 2 different gateways. And again, this sounds like something very complicated to deploy, but it's not. You just click on the config icon. Most of these settings will look familiar to you for the SD-WAN gateways. Along with that, now you have the HA option where you can enable clustering. So as you can see, by default, we enable automatic clustering of gateways. So any device that gets added to this particular group becomes part of the cluster. No configuration is needed specifically. So now that we have looked at SD branch, remote branch, as well as the large campus network, to complete our unified access story, we have also added support to manage your CX devices in Central. So we have already, for a few years, we have already supported managing Aruba PBOS switches with Central. And with the latest release of Central, we are adding the ability to manage the 6300, 6400 new access switches, CX switches in Central. So what I have here is a CX switch, a monitoring screen that is being managed by Central. So you can see high-level overview of the device itself. So you get the serial number and MAC address and some of the other information about the switch, as well as the configuration status on the device. So you can see if the Central configuration managed by Central has been applied correctly to the device or not. If you click on the LAN page, you can see more information for the port level details. See which ports are a faceplate view of the switch itself and the port configuration information. Similarly, if you click on the PoE tab, you get the PoE status on a per port and a per slot basis as well. And finally, we also have the ability to see all the clients that are connected to the CX device, similar to what we have seen in the wireless network. So this was an overview of how Central is now unifying access to all your network devices, including access points, your Aruba switches, including the new CX switches, as well as the SD branch gateway. So that's all I had. Over to Scott.
So again, thanks. So Jyoti gave a good overview of the Central capabilities managing a unified portfolio. And from the wireless perspective, a lot of the work that we put in the last 12 to 18 months has been around the underlying operating system, which we call AOS 10 for wireless. I know Justin and William will talk a little bit about the switch capabilities in a few minutes. But I do want to focus on a few other things that we've been working on the wireless portfolio in the last 12 or so months. So one of the key items is, of course, building the Wi-Fi 6 portfolio. And I'm happy to say that Aruba has a full portfolio of Wi-Fi 6 access points, including access points for a variety of indoor deployments. We're just releasing now a lot of access points for outdoor deployments. And we have released what we call our H models, or our hospitality models, which are used, as the name implies, a lot in hotels, et cetera, but they're also used quite a bit in remote and teleworker solutions, which we've seen, of course, a huge number of deployments here in recent times for those remote teleworker types of deployments. So we have a very complete portfolio of Wi-Fi 6, and they are all Wi-Fi 6 certified access points at this point with one of our latest releases. In addition to having that portfolio of products and the ability to deploy them in remote locations, along with the management through Central now with AOS 10, a lot of effort has gone into building the access point as a platform. So not just serving client devices, but also serving those clientless or those IoT devices. Previous generations of Aruba access points have supported BLE primarily for location services, but our latest series, our AP500 series, which is our Wi-Fi 6 access points, also support IEEE 15.4 radios. And with our release that we have coming out here in the next few days, we'll actually be able to support Zigbee on top of those 15.4 radios. So this is a huge advantage for customers who are deploying IoT in their environment. They now can use Aruba APs in order to manage and essentially speak to the Zigbee types of devices that are out there. And we're working with a lot of various partners from industrial applications to various door locks types of applications, which can be used in a variety of types of verticals, to shelf labels for use in retail locations or for other types of deployment. So we have a partner ecosystem that now I believe is getting close to about 300 various partners for these various IoT types of deployments. So that's something we're very proud of, and a lot of investment has gone in the last year is around the development of the Wi-Fi 6 portfolio and really building that portfolio so that it becomes a platform as opposed to just a Wi-Fi client serving type of device. But it's not just about the hardware. So a lot of effort and development goes into the software, and I could talk for hours, but I only have a few minutes today. So I'm going to only share one item with you, and that's something we call AirSlice. And AirSlice is the ability to optimize the on-air experience of applications by utilizing various constructs that are part of Wi-Fi 6. So as you see here, OFDMA, multi-user MIMO, target wake time, we're using those constructs in addition to our long-standing ability, something we call AppRF or a deep packet inspection engine, to identify various types of applications that are out there. And we're providing on-air application-based prioritization. Now you might think, wait a minute, that already exists, right? Wi-Fi multimedia already has this capability. And you're right, Wi-Fi multimedia does have the 4 buckets of voice, video, best effort, and background buckets, essentially, that you can prioritize in. But what we're finding is that customers out there are using more and more UCC types of applications, Wi-Fi calling, Skype, Zoom, Jabber, etc. Or they're using very high bit rate types of applications, which could be video applications, collaboration applications, or virtual reality applications. And Wi-Fi multimedia really lacks the ability to differentiate between those various applications and prioritize accordingly. So a lot of cases, you're going to have congestion between applications that are fitting in those same Wi-Fi multimedia buckets. So what AirSlice has done is extended or taken the capabilities of Wi-Fi 6, and we've extended the capabilities of Wi-Fi multimedia by adding more granular buckets within those 4 Wi-Fi multimedia buckets to provide that quality of service level. So what I'd like to do now is I'm going to actually demonstrate what the capabilities of AirSlice are. And I'll bring up my little demonstration here. So hopefully everybody can see, if somebody can give me a confirmation that they can see this slide that has topology on the right and a couple graphs on the left. Is that we good? Okay, I'll take silence as yes, we are good.
Hey, Scott, can I slide in a UCC question right here? I know
Sure, sure.
We've had a few incidents where I know, because, you know, with all of the platforms kind of coming together here in AOS 10 and ESP, we've had situations where, you know, there was quite robust UCC visibility within, you know, for example, a controller system with Airwave. And I think what maybe we had been told is that same level of granularity and visibility wasn't going to be in the autonomous and semi-autonomous APs and the central platform. That was from a while back. I'm kind of curious now that we're kind of moving in that direction, what the path is for the organizations that really benefit from that level of granularity they had with that traditional architecture.
Yeah, so the short answer is that yes, that level of granularity will remain within the central platform. So within the Airwave platforms and the Mobility Master with AOS 8 that we were running, or we continue to run, you have the ability to see the visibility of various UCC calls that are happening at any one point in time. And actually, we did a nice job of being able to kind of correlate the call quality along with the network quality. That capability still exists, and that's very important because customers do want to see, you know, what they want to have the visibility of those UCC calls moving forward and actually be able to track those over a period of time, because in a lot of cases, you're going to get a user that's going to come back and say, you know, my UCC quality has been relatively poor. You want to have that data maintained so you can go back and take a look at it over a period of time. So in short, the answer is yes, we will continue to support that. We will continue to enhance that with additional and newer UCC applications. We have an outstanding partnership with Microsoft that continues, so we're able to actually be very detailed on the voice, the video, the file sharing aspects that are happening within Office 365, Skype, et cetera. And we're looking to do that with a number of other vendors. All right, so back to AirSlice. Now, again, AirSlice, quality of service over the RF. What I want to show here, and you see on the right, there's a topology, and we have two servers that is generating traffic. One on the right is the Xchariot server. I'm going to generate some video traffic with the Xchariot server, and that's just going to be what I call my background traffic that I'm going to congest the RF environment. On the left, I have a virtual reality server, VR server that's there. And with that, I'm going to actually create a VR, a virtual reality session. Now, if this was a real demo, I would have you wear a pair of VR glasses and you would actually take a tour of the Louvre. Unfortunately, because we're all remote, it's very difficult for us to do that. So I'm going to actually just have to show you with some graphs of what's happening on the left. Not as exciting, but you can still get an idea of what's going on with AirSlice. So these graphs over here on the left are the real-time metrics for the virtual reality server that's going to the switch, through the AP, and into a client device, which happens to be a Samsung S10. The upper graph shows the bandwidth. And for virtual reality, we're always looking for about 200 megabit per second of bandwidth. That's kind of what it requires in order to have a good session, a clear session. The lower graph shows you the frame delay in milliseconds. And we're looking for something that's less than 25 milliseconds. Now, over on the right, I know that there's a degradation of performance and the frame delay. That's because the demo's kind of already started here. But I'm gonna just show a video, and I'll walk you through what's happening with this. So the first thing that we're going to see is we're going to actually go to our Xchariot server, and I'm going to start the background video. And you can see over there, if you're looking very closely, I've got about 300 megabits per second of video that's going. So the green line that you see on the chart, the vertical green line, that's the start of the demonstration. And since I've congested the RF space with that video traffic, along with the virtual reality traffic, you'll see that the virtual reality traffic is actually degraded down to about 100 megabits per second, and it spikes up. It's going to, okay, 200 in a few cases. But my frame delay is very poor. It's well over 25 milliseconds that I really require for a VR server. That's because what we're using here, we have AirSlice disabled, and we're using WMM. So we're competing for the video bucket within the WMM queuing, essentially. And there's no way to differentiate the VR traffic that I want to prioritize versus the background video traffic. So you can see the throughput, it says it's throttled, but actually we've seen is a degradation there. We're not really getting the ideal bandwidth that we want for virtual reality traffic. And more importantly, we're seeing these high latency spikes on the frame delay. And when you're using a virtual reality goggles or glasses, these latency spikes can cause some nausea from time to time. So this is kind of critical, right? You don't want to be using these and then having these frame delay spikes or a low performance. So now what we're going to do is we're going to actually, well, this goes back and shows the background traffic is still maintaining pretty steady, about 270 megabits per second. Now here, I'm going to pause things for just a quick moment while I chat through this. So now what I've done is over on the right, we've enabled AirSlice. Whereas on the left, we still have the two charts without AirSlice. So if you watch here, with AirSlice enabled, we're now able to prioritize the AirSlice traffic. And we're going to maintain, we're getting some spikes, but we're maintaining above the necessary 200 megabits per second for that. So we're getting a good bandwidth, good throughput session for the VR traffic because we've prioritized it. More importantly, on the lower chart, we're seeing it shows less than 50 milliseconds, but even less than 25 milliseconds of latency. And that's, again, critical for these types of applications. We go back to Xchariot. Yes, there's a degradation in performance. We're now down to about 150 megabits per second. That's because we have not prioritized that background traffic, but the video session is still being maintained. And there might be some frame loss, but still the user is actually able to see what's going on with that. So that completes the demo for the AirSlice. I know that was very brief, but hopefully I kind of gave you an idea of what AirSlice is capable of doing in these types of environments when we can prioritize traffic within a Wi-Fi multimedia bit bucket. And so we're excited about this. We're taking it out to customers and having them use it for their various deployments, UCC, video applications, etc. So with that, I'm going to turn things back over, or I'm going to turn things over to Justin Noonan and William Cho, who will talk about some of the enhancements on the wired side.
All right, so as we started off about talking about breaking down silos, let's jump to the next slide and how Jyoti actually showed how we break down those silos across SD-WAN, wired, wireless. Within the switching group, we're also breaking down silos. And so we started this journey with CX switching a few years back, and really excited about being able to introduce the one operating model, really the ability to take advantage of purpose-built switches, whether it be stackable or chassis-based products, from the edge all the way to the data center. And you'll see shortly, we have a new product extension really to go help the distributed enterprise and the branch office. And then coupled with that, we've built out embedded analytics. So really the ability to have analytics in every hop of the network, every CX switch, with the idea that you can actually accelerate that mean time to resolution. So building out AI insights, being able to get predictive capabilities built on top of what we call network analytics engine, and then having that broad visibility with the tool that we call NetEdit becomes very empowering for our network operators. And then lastly, this is all pulled together with CX. It is a next generation cloud native operating system. We had completely refactored our OS a few years back, and really excited about the network services, the workflow automation that we bring about with this next generation operating system. Next slide. And so as you can see here, we've really built out this portfolio, starting with the core of the network with the 8000 series and the data center environments, building out very traditional leaf and spine architectures. And then we're very excited to be able to really build out the edge, where we have historically been very strong with our mobile first architecture. But now with ESP, we were able to build out with the 63 and 6400, that edge platform all the way out to the data center. And then just now we've launched the 6200 along with the ESP. And this is really our foray into that distributed enterprise or the branch office, highly purpose-built, cost-optimized platform for those use cases that doesn't necessarily require the scale, the flexibility, but really at a very unique cost point. And all of which operate AOS-CX with that microservices architecture integrated with a state database, providing you that resiliency by design, 100% auto-generated APIs, and then more so leveraging that time series database for all those embedded analytics, especially as many of you know, networking problems, are generally transient in nature, and so being able to go double click onto the network node and be able to look, not only in the last few hours, but even arguably up to a years of time, and be able to benchmark that becomes very powerful. And so if I can just spend a little bit of time here introducing the 6200, it comes in 5 very typical configurations: 24, 48 port, a multitude of PoE, power over Ethernet configurations. The biggest bang here is really this idea that you have a simplified deployment, all operating with CX. And so it doesn't matter, breaking down that silo, if you have an operation in a private cloud data center, the campus cloud environment, or even in the branch office or the remote office, it all operates under one simple operational model. Again, with the embedded analytics with network analytics engine, you get faster troubleshooting, and you have the ability to scale up, being able to stack these switches up to 8 units high. And then more so, Justin will touch on this, you're ready for IoT, whether it be a variety of different devices or different user types. You can take advantage of dynamic segmentation and the ability to actually provide a fine-grained level of policy and be able to download that down to the user and enforce that at the switch or the wireless access point for that matter. And
William.
Yeah.
Sorry, so we've seen obviously I think NetEdit's really cool. We've seen a lot of the stuff that the CXs can do from Central. Where does NAE fit in just from a tools connectivity perspective? Is it its own thing over here that we connect to? Can you kind of just give a thumbnail on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So NAE, Network Analytics Engine, is really a platform that's embedded in every CX platform. So it gives you both the visibility to look at different objects that you want to monitor, whether it be, let's say, an OSPF daemon and look for a potential daemon flapping or a link flap. If you want to be able to look at various application services, IPSLA, you can instrument a DHCP server, for example. And so once you have all that visibility at the CX node level, you can bring that all together with NetEdit 2.0. We've created that visibility so you can have a network-wide visibility of all those network analytic engine scripts that are operating, again, on a CX hop-by-hop basis. And then more so, we'll talk about this. NetEdit is actually going to be folded into Central, and that becomes a very powerful single pane of glass. As now you'll be able to have now not only the power of config automation that Justin will talk about with NetEdit, but also brought into Central and being able to have that across all the different technologies with a true unified infrastructure. And so what I wanted to highlight here is, now as you have a better understanding of having a great underlay with CX switching and all the power of, RESTful APIs, a microservices architecture that allows you to have resiliency by design, the network analytics engine that allow you to accelerate your troubleshooting. It's really the ability to have an automation and orchestration platform across your data center workloads. And so, every customer that we talk to are looking to getting to faster time to services. And so whether it be virtualized environments like vSphere or even Nutanix, or being able to integrate your ILO environment, the key is being able to integrate that compute, storage, and networking. So as simple as plumbing a VLAN to that workload, to actually integrating complex workloads, again, across a particular virtualized environment. So being able to streamline all those processes now is all under one roof. And so we're really excited about bringing Aruba Composable Fabric and CX switching together.
William, I've got a couple of questions that came in from Twitter. I was wondering if you could address. The first one comes from here, Nilsson. Are there any limitations on the CX 6200 platform when you compare it against the CX 6300 platform, aside from the number of ports and whether or not it has PoE?
Yeah, so I mean, there are some hardware differences, if you will, and the 6200, as I mentioned, was really focused on the branch office, kind of the distributed enterprise use case. So in other words, we really tried to right-size, the ASICs, the CPU, and the memory to get to a very cost-effective price point in the industry. And so therefore, what you will find, at least in the initial introduction to the 6200, we won't have key capabilities like smart rate, BT power. So, a lot of these high performance capability for .11ax connectivity, if you will, high power for, IoT in some cases, for pan-tilt zoom cameras, are within the 6300 capability. And then there's also, in fairness, some level of right sizing around segmentation. 6200 will be a first-class citizen around dynamic segmentation, but we'll have an optimization, really, again, right-sized for that branch office use case.
Okay, thank you. The other question comes from Luis, and he wants to know, is there an upgrade license path or some kind of a conversion from Airwave to Central?
Yeah, so whether you're on Airwave today or even NetEdit for that matter, we do have an upgrade path, and so as Jyoti and Scott had highlighted, our future and where we're investing is really with Central, and so we want to make sure that we create that bridge for our customers and be able to provide that continuity, operational continuity. And so I would just suggest that you reach out to your local Aruba rep. Reach out to us, and we will help you both from a technology and operational migration, but as well as what we can do commercially.
Thank you.
All right. So with that, let me just go ahead and hand it over to Justin, and he will bring all of this great, exciting technology to life from the edge to cloud.
Thank you, William. Appreciate it. Here we have our dynamic segmentation running on our 6300 Aruba CX switch. And this has been upgraded for the new enhancements with AOS CX, especially with the 6300 out late last year. So we have a bunch of clients connected in, and some clients, if you notice here, are doing switch-to-switch tunneling. We call virtual network-based tunneling, but it's based on VXLAN and EVPN. We also have, we have clients doing MAC authentication as well as .1x, and we also have traditional clients doing user-based tunneling and access points that are locally switched onto the edge switch here. So we still have this notion here at Aruba of colorless ports where no matter where you plug a device or a client into the network, you still get the same role, same policy, VLAN assignment, and you have a choice of now of different ways to tunnel. We can tunnel traditionally to a gateway cluster, or we can tunnel to other switches too using virtual network-based tunneling. And so with that being said, showing this, we have a lot of different options now of sending our traffic across the campus network. That might seem daunting if you need to configure something as complex as VXLAN and EVPN, which requires BGP, and it can be complex. But the nice thing about the Aruba solution is that we have NetEdit that simplifies a lot of this configuration. So here, if I go to NetEdit, I'll highlight my switch topology here. And this is a topology of our demo network that we're currently running with here. And as you can see, I have the segmentation layers turned on within NetEdit. So I have my switches that are doing user-based tunneling from a access switch to a gateway cluster, as well as I have switches that are doing switch-to-switch tunneling using VNBT or VXLAN. And one way we've simplified this to be able to do that, because as we know, NetEdit allows us to configure multiple switches or a single switch at the same time. We can either highlight a switch and configure it, manually hand edit the configuration across the switches, or what NetEdit allows us to do is have these deploy solution wizards. So here I have a new overlay network wizard that I can enter in, and I can add in my VLANs, which will do the manual VNI to VLAN mapping automatically across the switches that switches that I select. And so once I have the appropriate VNIs and VLANs that I want to configure, I would just enter the range or the list of them, and then I would create the solution. NetEdit would then push the configuration to the switch or switches. So then once we're all done there, we can actually see all the information here that's configured on the switch itself, whether we're doing user-based tunneling, switch to gateway, or switch-to-switch tunneling with VXLAN or VNBT. So what this also allows us to do now we can extend this tunneling capability into the campus. So we can have clients, as I'm doing here, clients automatically assigned into VNIs, placed into VNIs using the user role. So the user role will place them into a VLAN, which is already mapped to a VNI. So now I can dynamically place users either into a switch to gateway tunnel or a switch to switch tunnel, which will allow a user to access services or extend VLANs across campus networks. And so here in this case, I have, as I have this set up, I can then access my data center or my campus resources within the campus network. So to prove that, I can log into a, such as a facial recognition program or other campus services and be able to access that across my campus network. That being said, I will next turn it over to Samuel.
Yeah, so before we go into the demo, a little intro into SD branch and why we chose to call it SD branch instead of SD-WAN like everyone else. What we're doing here is we're using all that technology that Jyoti and Scott and William were talking about on the LAN side, and we're combining it with what we can do on the WAN, with what we can do with SD-WAN. Of course, I'm not going to focus on those things right now. We're going to focus on the cloud integration, the orchestration, and in the next session that's about zero trust security, we'll also look at IDS, IPS. So we've been talking for a little while about AIOps, about live upgrades, dynamic segmentation, air slice, all these cool technologies. These can be leveraged in the campus, and these make sense in the campus. But you saw how William was wanting to have AirSlice in his teleworker setup. So they are also relevant in a smaller location. Of course, in a smaller location, we also need to connect to our workloads. They could be in our data centers, they could be in the cloud. So the first thing we need to do is orchestrate the connectivity between the sites. In this case, Aruba Central is not only running the management plane, it's also running a control plane, and is allowing us to connect the different devices in our network, the different gateways in our networks, micro branches, and even VPN clients to our data centers by means of an orchestrated SD-WAN. We set up the tunnels automatically, we exchange the routes automatically. Then we bring up our presence in the cloud. We bring up virtual gateways in AWS or in Azure to easily access those workloads. And lastly, we're going to optimize the service to our critical applications, so we can easily determine which is the best path to get to Zoom, to get to Office 365, and so on. Focusing more on the cloud component, we could split this into 3 blocks. One would be having the cloud as part of SD-WAN, so putting a gateway inside the cloud. Another flavor of it would be connecting to the cloud. And maybe I may have a relatively slim presence in my branches, a relatively small SD-WAN network, but a large presence in the cloud. Or I may want to connect to partners that where it doesn't really make sense to put a virtual gateway, like the case of the cloud security partners. Lastly, you definitely want to optimize the traffic going to your data centers. You definitely want to optimize the traffic going to your cloud or your private cloud deployments, but you also need to optimize the communication with SaaS providers, as we mentioned, Zoom, Office, and the likes of those. So let's go into a little demo to see these things. Okay, so as you can see here, I have my relatively small deployment where I have a branch here in California. It is connected to data centers pretty much everywhere. Most of them are cloud data centers, so they're quite easy to deploy. And you see how I'm advertising subnets to the cloud or to the SD-WAN and receiving subnets from the SD-WAN. Fairly straightforward. What if I want to expand my presence and I want to go to, in this case, Asia Pac? Well, I can very easily, because I've already entered my AWS credentials, because I have my token there in Central, I can see my deployment. I can see that I have presence in several locations. I can see my VPCs in this case in Asia Pac, and I can say, hey, I want to spin up a virtual gateway in this VPC. All I need to do is select an image from the marketplace, pick the SSH keys, which security group, and determine whether you want an HA or not. Once you hit deploy, this takes care of bringing the VM up, putting a certificate so the communication with Central is secured, connecting it to the internet, connecting it to your, in this case, because it's AWS Direct Connect, and connecting it to the LAN part of your VPC. Okay, so we mentioned that is one of the flavors. That's how you bring the SD-WAN into the cloud. There's also another flavor where you connect the SD-WAN to the cloud. In this setup, what I have is different groups, and I have a larger I have a larger cloud presence. I don't have just isolated VPCs. I have transit gateways. I have V1 hubs in Azure. I have a Zscaler account. So what I'm doing here is I go by groups. Let's say all my branches in the East Coast of the US, I want to connect them to, in this case, a transit gateway I have in Virginia. All my branches in the West, I would connect them to the transit gateway in, let me see, Oregon. Okay, and I can go on with that very easily. If we take Azure as an example, I can say, okay, I want to connect to the V hub I have in the West. All I have to do is hit preview, hit submit, and this takes care of bringing up the tunnels and setting up the BGP session between all my branch gateways in that group and in this case the V1 hub. That's for AWS, that's for Azure. In the case of Zscaler, it's even simpler because we don't really need to exchange routes with them. once this is done, you saw that I had the setup built in AWS. You can see how the tunnels are built and how I am going to be using, in this case, I am going to be using the AWS network, this backbone I've built with TGW peerings and so on. I'm going to be using that as transport between my branches. So in this case, we don't have such a large SD-WAN. We have more of a cloud environment, and we just plug ourselves to the different cloud nodes. Okay, let's go to the last point, because I keep having this nagging thing about William saying he wanted an air slice for his house, and that makes a lot of sense, because these days we're using Zoom every day, Office 365, Teams, all these applications. So one thing the gateways are going to do for you is they're going to be monitoring our critical SaaS applications. In this case, we can't just monitor how Central is doing or how a VPNC is doing. We have to do an HTTPS probe to the application itself. What that'll tell us is how it is behaving. And as we can see here, we're talking about Office 365. Office 365 is doing pretty well in this case. I have a slight dip here of perceived performance, but I think it's fine. 30 milliseconds of jitter is something that we can tolerate. So perhaps, William, what you need to do is, on top of that access point enabled with AirSlice, get yourself a branch gateway and have complete visibility into how your critical applications are doing. And with one of these 9004 LTEs, you will have automatically another path. So if you want to have certain applications protected, you can move them back and forth between the different circuits.
So I think the last time that we saw the presentation at Network Field Day last year, we kind of talked about the AWS stuff and all that, and just, sometimes AWS becomes fairly cost prohibitive, right? With traffic and data and all that. How are you guys handling that, and what's that kind of doing on the back end, or what are you guys seeing from the cost perspective there?
Well, AWS is cost prohibitive in some cases, but keep in mind that we can be very selective about what traffic we send to AWS. If you have, for instance, branch-to-branch traffic, you can easily define a policy where you say, for branch-to-branch traffic, don't go from one branch into AWS and back into another branch, because I don't want to be paying that extra networking cost. If you don't have a lot of presence in a certain VPC, you can put a smaller virtual gateway, and that of course reduces the cost. And it is expensive, but running a data center is also expensive. So we see a lot of customers that are moving to AWS or moving to Azure, and they are making an effort to be more cost competitive in that sense. They keep bringing new EC2 instances that are more efficient, that are even cheaper. So we definitely see a huge trend towards that, and the COVID-19 situation has definitely accelerated.
Okay, and then on like what you're doing here with the QoE scores and all that kind of thing, is that also a play for the UXI tie-in, or is that strictly coming from the analytics from OS 365 or whoever?
In this case, the gateway is probing whatever critical services we define. And based on those probes, it picks not only the uplink, it also even picks the DNS the DNS server you're going to use for certain domains. So for instance, if AT&T is my best uplink for Office 365, the gateway will even redirect the DNS request to the DNS server I learned from AT&T. That doesn't mean that we cannot compare one with each other, and the information from the sensors is being fed, or we're very close to being able to feed it into Central. But in this case, the gateway has to do a lot of things to figure out what path to put your traffic in. So it's not just measuring; it's also moving traffic back and forth.
Just touching on something that was brought up a while ago, including Zigbee in your APs now. And I think I heard you guys mention things like, just IoT stuff like door locks and what have you. But like, what are some other use cases you guys have, thought of for that type of thing? And have you thought about Z-Wave or anything else like that? And the reason why I'm interested is I've recently upgraded my smart devices in my house and things like that. So I've been working with Z-Wave and Zigbee a little bit. So I'm just curious as to some stuff that you guys are thinking about with that type of thing.
The focus at this point has been primarily around Zigbee because, and what we find in a lot of enterprise applications, Zigbee is the prevalent, technology that is out there. We've worked with a lot of various partners on that. Many of them are around industrial types of applications, so very specific production line sensors, telemetry devices, etc. Things that we're looking at, I did mention the door locks. I mentioned electronic shelf labels. We have a number of partnerships with vendors for both of those platforms. Others that we're looking at are building HVAC systems. So again, looking at the telemetry information there on lighting controls, heating, air conditioning controls, a variety of those. I just had another one that slipped my mind, unfortunately. So there's many that are out there. I would point you, if you're interested in specific ones, we do maintain a list of the various partnerships, and it's always increasing. That's on the Aruba page on, I think it's under technical partner, something like that. I'd have to go back and look. I forget. I'm sorry. But yeah, we do maintain that there. As far as Z-Wave goes, yes, there is an opportunity for us to look at other technologies that are out there. Our initial focus, like I said, is around the 15.4 with the Zigbee on top of that, because the feedback we've been getting from customers, and as we look at the market, that seems to be where the majority, 75 to 80% of the applications reside.
And to add on to Mitch's question there, when talking about 802 and 154, have you had any heavy industrial applications for ISA 100 or wireless HART?
I don't know, Jason. I'd have to let me go and research that more, and I think I'd have to reply to you offline because off the top of my head, I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
I've got a question back to SD-WAN. Are things like TLS 1.3 and DNS over HTTPS going to have any impact on your ability to identify applications if people are using applications to make policy and path enforcement?
Yeah, that's a good one. So TLS 1.3, we will look at the security component in the next session, and we're going to explain how we're doing more and more to identify applications and to identify what's going on. With respect to DNS over HTTPS, what will happen is that we may need to ask the clients to do the DNS request to the gateway instead of just blindly send any DNS request and us doing the redirect. Because if you encapsulate it inside an HTTPS, we're not going to be able to do the redirect. What we will definitely do is monitor which is the best uplink and send applications to the best circuit.
All right, there's a question from Luis on Twitter. If we have a scenario right now with on-prem controller and VPN IP remote sites and want to deploy additional 1,000 AP to remote workers, what is the best approach? Use classic way or convert the controller to VPNC and central to have all the new cool features?
So with the current controller, they can definitely do wraps and go all the way back to that controller. If they want to get all the goodness with Aruba Central, they can definitely either have another gateway, another controller that they convert to gateway, or that same converted to AOS, either AOS 10 or an SD-WAN version of AOS 8, and have it terminating the traffic from APs. That is available today. There's multiple guides explaining how to do it in our support portal.